Greetings, Starfighters. Boy, it's been almost a year since I've done one of these. I didn't do one for the movies I saw in 2024 because 2024 was a lot, and that a lot carried into early 2025, and yeah, let's not dwell on that. I've kind of already gone into the sadness of things over on my main show. So, in the past, when I've done lists like these, or even just posts on social media or whatever, I've limited my rankings of movies I saw in the year to the new releases that I saw in theaters. But I kind of got inspired to do this after Renegade Cut, a channel I not only subscribe to on YouTube, but I'm also part of his Patreon, decided to, at roughly the halfway point last year, he hasn't done a follow-up yet, but he decided to rank every movie he saw in the first half of 2025. Not just the theatrical releases, but older movies he was seeing for the first time, or movies he was rewatching for whatever reason. And I decided to do that too. So here we are. Every movie I saw in 2025, including the rewatches. Okay, so we have our standard S, A, B, C, and D tiers. The movies down here are in alphabetical order, which is fine. Because I don't log my rewatches on Letterboxd in the same way that I log the rewatch that I log the new watches. Trying to remember what goes in where chronologically would just be too confusing. Let me get a couple of quick ones out of the way here quickly. Wow, that was a very stupid sentence. Some of these movies are movies that I watched for Shameless Cash Grab, so I don't want to be repetitive. Most of them come from season 13. Sorry, season 13. Season 13 is the one I'm on right now. Most of these come from season 12, with one coming from season 11, and in fact was the last and best, but the bar was in hell, movies of season 11. So let me just go ahead and throw these up here real quick in the rankings. You can just go watch the episodes for my opinion. Switching channels. Switching channels. Yeah, I'll go ahead and bump that up to the C tier because Henry Gibson was really good in that. Let me see here. Where were the other ones? This one was... Oh, yeah, Strange Bedfellows. That was trash. A Very Special Favor. Extra trash. Blindfold was... Yeah, it was okay. Come September was trash. Has anybody seen My Gal? Was really good. That one can go up there. And I think that was... Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... There's one more down here. Where is it? Oh, yeah, Man's Favorite Sport. This meeting could have been an email, the movie. All right. Okay, all that out of the way, now I can spend a little bit more time on these. And again, these are all in alphabetical order, not in the order I watched them. And we start off with 28 Years Later. You know, I gave it 4.5 stars originally. I think I'd probably only give it 4 now, but only because I think it's a sequel, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which came out just last month, is actually better. But, 28 Years Later, still pretty good. 28 Weeks Later still remains the weakest one of the franchise so far, although we're getting a third 28 Years Later movie later this year. I don't know much about it, apart from, Cillian Murphy being back. A stop-motion short film called A Bird Hit My Window, and Now I'm a Lesbian. It wasn't bad, but... Yeah, it just wasn't bad. That's all I got for that. It was. I think it was. I think it was really. It was deeply. I think it was very deeply personal for the people who made it, or the person who made it. I don't really know how involved. I think there were credits, so this was definitely a team effort, but I don't know how much. Wow, I am rambling like ass right now, aren't I? I'm sorry. A little behind the scenes stuff here. I had to spend an hour trying to get my recording software to work again to make this damn video, and I'm still a little frustrated about that. It hasn't gone away yet. Airplane, yeah, that the original 1980s, the spoof movie that, oh well, not the original spoof movie, but like the original Airplane. They only ever made one sequel, and anyway, yeah, Airplane mostly holds up shockingly well for an 80s comedy. I think I kind of like what Vera from Council of Geeks said. It's like the one part of it that doesn't really hold up all that well is how there's the recurring gag of people that Stryker is telling stories to, killing themselves out of boredom, and it's the fact that the last two are very racially coded. They have the Asian guy commit seppuku, and the guy who I think might have been a white actor in brown face, although I'm not 100% sure of that, but in the turban, and he's pouring gasoline on himself, and ooh yeah, that didn't go quite. Yeah, that's not particularly great, but honestly, so many of these jokes still hold up even now. Ironically, one of the people who made the movie doesn't seem to think that. He's sadly gone full. He's kind of gone full. Oh, you can't make jokes anymore. Everything is too woke, and it's like, dude, go on YouTube. You can find a bunch of younger millennials and Gen Zers watching Airplane for the first time and laughing their butts off. What the hell is wrong with you, man? See, okay, so yeah, Airplane, still great. Couple of jokes didn't age well, but I mean, for an 80s comedy, to say that it was only a couple of jokes that aged badly is high praise indeed. Actually, fuck it, I'll just put that back up in the S tier, why not? And don't call me Shirley. Alright, Anastasia, the Golden Films version, I'm counting it even though this was technically a riff. Well, not technically a riff, it was a riff by Diva from Musical Hell, another YouTube channel I subscribe to. But since it was the whole movie, I go ahead and count it here, and I remember that it wasn't good, and that's literally it. I could not tell you anything else about this movie. It was... Oh, now I'm trying to remember the name of that medication. In one end, out the other, leaving no lasting effect at all. Just, it's a nothing burger of a movie. I mean, honestly, calling it bad is almost giving it too much credit, but... Okay, so going from Anastasia, we go to Anna and the Apocalypse. I watch this every year on Christmas Eve since the first time I saw it. You know, one of the two best Scottish zombie Christmas musicals. The other one being the proof of concept film that eventually became this one. Yeah, it's great. It's a great horror musical. I absolutely love it. The songs stick in my head, a lot of them all year round, which you can kind of get away with some of them because the songs don't actually mention Christmas, like Hollywood Ending and Soldier at War. Actually, I think most of the songs you can listen to any time of year because they don't actually mention Christmas directly. But yeah, it's great. I love it. Army of Darkness was... I saw Army of Darkness last year again for the first time since I was a kid, and like I think it kind of falls in the middle when it comes to Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2 in the original trilogy. I know there's been another movie since then, plus the TV show. I think probably one of the worst aspects of the TV show came from this, because this is the sort of the movie that cemented the Ash as charming asshole, but still an asshole character. I think the balance of horror and comedy is absolutely at its best in Evil Dead 2. So, yeah, I think I'd probably put this in between 1 and 2, trilogy-wise. I haven't seen the other sequels yet. Yeah. High B tier, but B tier. Oh, yeah, I probably should do the... Okay. going back down to the D tier for a second, A Very Special Favor is worse than all of these other ones here, so it's going to stay at the bottom no matter what. And I think no. Okay. I'll put Anna and the Apocalypse over Has Anybody Seen My Gal in Airplane? Actually, I think I'd put Airplane over Has Anybody Seen My Gal? All right. Back down to the unranked movies. Defunctland's Disney Channel's theme, A History Mystery. Hey, Letterboxd counts it as a movie, so I counts it as a movie. Counts it as a... Oh my God. Really good. Twist ending is great. Great music. It just goes to show you that if you have enough talent as a writer and as a speaker, you can make any topic engaging. Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Amongst Thieves. God, that is so good. I wish it had done better at the box office. I'd love to have more with these cast and these characters. And it's just like, it is just so great. It is so fun. And it does the bathos thing very well. Bathos is basically sort of the opposite of pathos. Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions has a video about the topic, so I won't go too much into it here. I'll link to the bathos episode in the show notes. Yeah, bathos is something that's been kind of plaguing the Marvel Cinematic Universe lately. Actually, it has been pretty much since they let Joss Whedon direct the first Avengers movie, where, I mean, it turned out okay, but then they kept doing it, and honestly, aside from the first Avengers movie, the only times that it really, actually worked was in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. James Gunn is pretty good at bathos. We're going to get to that later, and yeah, a lot of people were kind of refer to it as So That Happened. And, again, to be fair, the MCU does it a lot, way too much. But I think some people fall into the trap of thinking that it's inherently bad, and I don't think that's the case. Again, there's the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and the first Avengers movie gets away with it for the most part, and then you got Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which has some pretty great bathos moments in it, too. All right, so enough about bathos. I've talked about bathos more than I talked about Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, it was a great fantasy movie, and probably one of the best ones I have seen in a long time. God, I think the last really great fantasy movie that I saw would have been the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, not the Hobbit trilogy. No, the Lord of the Rings anime was okay, and there was a decent fantasy movie back in season 7 of Shameless Cash Grab. It was also really the only good movie that season. Yeah, if you've never played Dungeons & Dragons, you can still enjoy Honor Among Thieves just as a fantasy comedy action movie. But if you are familiar with the game, there are a lot of Easter eggs in there that are fun. Fantastic Four First Steps. We finally got a good Fantastic Four movie. And Michael Chiklis was good as the Thing. It was one of the few parts of the Tim Story movies that I can honestly say I liked, but Ebon Moss-Bachrach was great, and I am so glad we finally have a Jewish actor playing Ben Grimm. That is something that has been long overdue. If Marvel hadn't done that, there's a very real chance I would have skipped this movie. Ralph Ineson was so good as Galactus. I kind of wish we'd had more of him, and Ralph Ineson isn't Romani, but I honestly still would rather have him playing Doctor Doom than Robert Downey Jr. And props to this movie for remembering that Johnny Storm is smart too. Maybe not on the level of Reed and Sue, but he's not an idiot. I think some of the other movies kind of forget that, ignoring the fact that if he was as stupid as they portray him, he never would have been able to get up into space to get the cosmic powers in the first place. Here's hoping the Russos don't fuck up the characters in Doomsday. Okay, a short film starring the YouTuber Not Even Emily called Her Curse. It's a queer dark comedy, and it's not too long. It's like 11 minutes, and you can find it on YouTube. And it's a little weird. The premise is a woman tries to basically uses a wiki to try and cast a curse on her ex-girlfriend, and there's not a ton of dialogue, but I enjoyed it well enough. I'll put it at the yeah. I'd say I'm torn between the bottom of the A tier or the top of the B tier. I think I'll just go with bottom of the A tier. Hot Fuzz, it was actually my first rewatch of last year. I have a little thing on the side called a rewatch project. It's on my Letterboxd page. I'll include a link to the very first rewatch project thing in the show notes so you have context for that. Man, I want to rank the movie higher because it is, on its own, easily one of the best action comedies ever made. But it's kind of hard to still have that joy for it when so many of the actors from it and from the Cornetto trilogy in general have either shown they support J.K. Rowling's transphobic bullshit or are perfectly willing to ignore it for the sake of money. So many people from these movies have let me down, including the leads. But again, the movie still stands on its own. It's just, and I'm glad I've seen it. I'm glad I didn't learn about a lot of that until after I'd rewatched it. That's for sure, because I wouldn't have rewatched it if I'd known that. I'm probably not going to watch it again anytime soon. So, I guess on its own, it's still. Oh, but even with that, the mystery is so tight that even though the hero is actually wrong at first, it makes perfect sense, and in any other movie that is probably what would actually be going on. But what is actually going on also makes sense. Fuck. Ugh, God. Okay, I'm still gonna put Hot Fuzz in the S tier, but at the bottom of the S tier. Because a lot of you, especially Nick Frost, have disappointed me. Actually, I finally saw the third Cornetto trilogy movie for the first time in 2025. I don't know what took me so long. It wasn't as good as the first two, but I'll put that one at the bottom of the A tier. Hundreds of Beavers. Oh, that was so fun and surreal, and nothing I could say about it could do it justice. Just, you should see it for yourself, or at the very least see a trailer and then decide if you want to see it for yourself. It is just so... It's so fucking bizarre, and I mean that as a compliment. One of the best movies of the year it came out, and I kind of regret not going to see it in theaters, but then again, I'm not sure my local theater carried it anyway. Okay, a short mockumentary from The Onion, Jeffrey Epstein, bad pedophile. The punchline of it being, it's not that, he's bad because he's a pedophile, but because he sucked at being a pedophile, and it is funny. I mean, now that we know a lot more to the extent of what him and his cohorts were doing with the latest dump of files, it does make it a little harder to crack jokes about it. But I mean, the Onion, I'm not going to say the Onion never misses, but when they hit hard, and I'd put this one as a pretty good hit, Okay, moving on from that. Lemonade Mouth, the only DCOM I've ever seen, DCOM standing for Disney Channel Original Movie. This has become something of a comfort movie for me over the years, and I'm sure a lot of people will have plenty of good reasons why it's not great, but fuck you, it's going at the top of the A tier. I watch it pretty much at least once a year at this point. It brings me joy. I liked the songs. The plot is simple enough. I mean, it is a movie that's geared towards, teenagers. And Hayley Kiyoko is in it, and I like Hayley Kiyoko. She's as a pop singer, and she's also got a movie coming out. I mean, she directed a movie that's coming out. And Naomi Scott's done pretty well since this too, having been in the Power Rangers movie, which I think is underrated. She was in the live action Aladdin, and that wasn't her fault. I haven't seen Smile 2, but I hear that was like really good. I think when people who hate the original movie are praising the sequel, I think that's a pretty good sign that, the second one is a step up. Lights in New York, this is another one that's a riff, but it was the whole movie, so I'm counting it. It was done by Steve Shives over on his channel. I think this was their Thanksgiving one. It's notable as it was a very early talkie. I don't think it was like the first, but I think it was the first for their studio. Just kind of a nothing burger of a movie. I can't really say I hated it because hate requires interest. I'll put that at the bottom of the C tier. And surprisingly heavy on the moralizing, despite being pre-code. I think it was pre-code. Shit, maybe I should have looked that up. I don't know. I probably should have tried to make this video sooner. Maybe the movie would have been. The movie would be fresher in my mind or something. Mickey 17. That was pretty good. Sci-fi satire from the guy who did Snowpiercer. I'd say it's not as good as Snowpiercer, but Robert Pattinson was great in it. I think it's my favorite thing I've seen him in so far. Keep in mind there are a lot of. I have seen very few Robert Pattinson movies, but I haven't seen The Batman yet. I probably never will, to be honest. I'm a little. The trailers didn't really grab me, and I've seen spoilers for how that movie goes, and it doesn't really seem like I'd be into it. But yeah, Mickey 17, great dark comedy. I know it's based on a book, but I haven't read the book. It's got the solid supporting cast with Mark Ruffalo and Stephen Yeun. Some of the jokes are a little obvious, but they still work. Yeah, okay. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It is kind of a shame that so many of the Pythons have turned out to be shitheads later in life. Especially John Cleese and Terry Gilliam. But fuck, the movie still holds up fairly well. The coconut's still funny. Help, I'm being repressed. Look, you stupid bastard, you got no arms left. Away from my private parts at your auntie's. We are the knights who say nee. All right, sorry. I'll stop now. Yeah. Is there anything about it that I think doesn't particularly hold up well? Nothing that couldn't really be laid at the feet of the time when it was made, and maybe it were being made later by the same types of people, if not necessarily the same people. Those could have been. Yeah. I'll put it between Airplane and Hundreds of Beavers. Yeah, that'll work. Werner Herzog's version of Nosferatu. I had no idea that it was a TV movie that would have actually very little blood in it. Is there anything I like about this movie? Yes, the main female character has more agency. Not that it really means much by the end, but still. Top of the C tier, I guess. Omakase is another short film with Not Even Emily. This one's about a woman who goes on a date to a Japanese restaurant with a white guy who seems kind of chill at first, but the more he talks, the more you realize that he absolutely is just fetishizing Asians as opposed to actually respecting Japanese culture. And she's looking for any reason to get out. And there's more to it than that, but that would enter heavy spoiler territory. I think it was pretty good. I didn't like it as much as Her Curse necessarily, but it also has a more coherent, a much easier to follow story because there's more dialogue. Yeah, I'll put that between Her Curse and The World's End. That sounds about right. Predator Badlands makes me all the more sad that Prey didn't make it into theaters, but I'm glad we're getting good Predator movies again. That's been a while. Some stuff is pretty silly. Some of the CGI is like kind of painfully obvious. It's weird to see the Weyland-Yutani Corporation being antagonists in a movie that doesn't have any xenomorphs in it, but you know what? I had fun, and that was really all I needed. It didn't need to be great, you know? I'll put that over. I liked Mickey 17 had a more biting wit to it. Yeah, I'll put it between Mickey 17 and the Disney Channel theme documentary. Yeah, that's fine. The Ratchet and Clank movie, you know what? I liked it. I don't care what anybody else says. You know, caveat, I've only really ever played demos of a couple of the video games, so I don't know that much about the world. But my step-parent is a big fan of the games, and they liked the movie, so I liked. Some people complained about it. I kind of liked the bit towards the end when the hero does, like, you know, his one-liner that doesn't actually make a lot of sense, and then the villain is just like, wait a minute, I don't understand that. What are you trying to say? And they're going back and forth on it, and then, yeah, Captain Quark is the hero's name, right? And well, not the main hero, but he's a hero, kind of. He redeems himself. Goes, look, we workshop 1,000 of these a year. They can't all be gold. I liked that bit. I mean, I didn't love it. I do think it's kind of a shame that it failing at the box office meant we're not getting the Sly Cooper movie. I would have actually really loved to see that. Because I never got a chance to play the game, but it looked like so much fun. Oh well. Star Trek Beyond. It's one of the three Star Trek movies I saw in 2025. 2 of them were rewatches. Beyond is definitely the best of the Kelvin timeline trilogy. And, you know, people complain about needle drops in Star Trek, and I think, well, some of it is in good faith. A lot of it is just, you know, toxic fandom whining because it's like, oh, they wouldn't have done that in the 90s. So it's bad. I think it deserves props for managing to reuse the needle drop that people didn't like from the first Kelvin timeline movie and actually do it well. You know, redemption for sabotage. I liked the story. I think it was definitely the cast really settled in. I do think it's not fair that they didn't bring Alice Eve back for this one because I guess they wanted to make as clean a break from Into Darkness as possible. Even though absolutely nothing that went wrong with that toilet grenade of a movie was her fault. But, man, yeah, I love Star Trek Beyond. It's great. It's not like my favorite Star Trek movie, but it is my favorite of the Kelvin timeline trilogy, and I'm mostly sad for not getting a 4th one, although the way Zoe Saldana and Simon Pegg have behaved on certain things lately, I can't say I'm that heartbroken anymore. We'll go with 8. Actually, you know what? No, fuck it. Fuck top. No, not top of the A tier. It is going over. Has anybody seen My Gallon Hot Fuzz? There we go. Yeah. Star Trek First Contact. You know, with the benefit of hindsight, the creation of the Borg Queen was a mistake, but at the same time, I think they kind of needed to have that for a movie because I'm not sure the hive mind villain concept would have necessarily gone over well with the casuals. Because I mean, there were going to be people who were going to see this movie who hadn't watched the TV show. They would be like, "What's playing at the theater that I haven't seen?" I mean, that doesn't really happen as much these days because ticket prices are so expensive. But yeah, First Contact, still a great movie, still a great Star Trek movie. It does have some of the problems that plagued the TNG movies as a whole, particularly how they sort of abandoned the ensemble in order to turn it into the Picard and Data show, which occasionally worked, but a lot of the times didn't. Insurrection and Nemesis. Yeah, and getting to see the Defiant on the big screen, that was a really cool moment for me. On the downside of things, oh boy. I mean, I like Michelle Yeoh, but that is literally the only reason that this is going at the top of the D tier as opposed to any lower, as opposed to behind Come September, A Strange Bedfellows. Oh God. Calling it a failed pilot is actually being too kind. It is a 10-episode streaming series cut down into 90 minutes. It is just a mess. So much is wrong. So many things don't make sense. Why is Rachel Garrett here? Why is Starfleet saying anything about the mission at all when it would rob them of any deniability? Why is the villain why? Just why? Ugh. God, this movie is so fucking stupid on so many levels. And, going back to my point about it not being a pilot, like a lot of people call this like a failed pilot that just got shoved off as a movie. The reason I call it a season cut down into like 90 minutes is because there were moments when I was watching it where I'd be like, okay, so that's where the first episode would have ended. I'm not sure how many people know that Section 31 was going to be a series, but then Michelle Yeoh won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But yeah, I'm watching it, and there's moments where it's like, okay, so that's where episode 1 would have ended. That probably would have been in episode 3. That would have been the mid-season break. That would have been the cliffhanger for the mid-season break. That reveal would have had an episode-long flashback leading up to it. Yeah, it's just... God, I don't really have anything kind to say about Section 31 beyond the fact that, Michelle Yeoh is obviously having fun, and that does come through. And sometimes the actor having fun can help a movie. Like with Ewan McGregor in the Star Wars prequels, he was clearly having a time of his life, and God, that really does help. But it is not enough to help Section 31 at all. And that's even before you get into the messy politics of it. Jesse Gender has touched on that way better than I could in multiple videos, so I'm not going to put a link in the show notes because I really wouldn't know which one to start with. But we go from that to... Okay, you know what? This is going to be controversial, but I want it to be kept in mind that the first Superman theatrical movie with Christopher Reeve is still great for a lot of reasons. It is also a product of its time. And, but the new Superman movie that came out last year, directed by James Gunn, it is, I think, my favorite Superman movie right now. And this is actually the first movie with Superman in it that I've seen in theaters. And no, I'm not counting the neck down cameo at the end of the first Shazam. This is another movie where Bathos actually manages to kind of work in a couple of scenes. I love Crypto. I absolutely love the new version of Mr. Terrific. We had him on Arrow, but I liked that version of Mr. Terrific, but they also kind of fucked him up in season 6, and I'm still a little salty about that. Nathan Fillion was definitely the right choice to play Guy Gardner. I wasn't sure at first, but yeah, it all works. Skipping over the will they, won't they, and just having Clark and Lois be together already. this version of Clark's parents seem to exist exclusively as a fuck you to the versions of them from the Zack Snyder movies. He saves the squirrel. And oh god, Nicholas Hoult. I could go on for like 20, 30 minutes about how great a Lex Luthor Nicholas Hoult was. This is just, yeah, I'm going to put it between Anne and the Apocalypse and Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is a cat who still has plenty of food in his bowl and needs to shut up. Speaking of Superman, I finally got around to seeing the animated version of the story, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, that was turned into Superman versus the Elite. It was okay. Didn't particularly care for Polly Perrette as Lois Lane. My first exposure to the character of Manchester Black was actually played by David Ajala on Supergirl, who had very different motivations from this version of him, but it's fine. It's fine. I haven't actually read the comic that it's adapted from, but I know enough of it from like other reviews. Like, I think it works okay. I think they did kind of need to add stuff to it because, I mean, the story in the comic was only one issue, so there was a lot of room for them to add stuff. It's okay. I'd say I'd put it between... Yeah, between Ratchet and Clank and Bad Pedophile. Oh, yeah, between Ratchet and Clank and Bad Pedophile. Boy, that's a title, isn't it? I'm gonna get. Please, nobody clip me out of context saying those words. Okay. The new Looney Tunes movie, The Day the Earth Blew Up. Man, I am so glad we're getting 2D animation in theaters again. Is this my favorite Looney Tunes thing ever? No, but. Props for it not being like, more caring more about cramming as many Looney Tunes characters into one story as possible, not doing a bunch of member berries shit, because for the most part, it's just Porky and Daffy. I mean, Petunia Pig shows up, but apart from her and the two leads, they're the only, Looney Tunes regulars in this. Every other character was created for this movie, and I'm glad they did it that way. And the reveal that, the villain isn't quite as villainous as we might have thought at first. I don't want to say too much because I think people deserve to be surprised to see it. I actually managed to kind of forget about it for a while, which is weird because I don't usually forget about movies I like. But, 2025 was kind of a fucking weird year. I'd say between Mickey 17 and Predator Badlands. I think that's a good place for it. The Great Gabba, this one was another riff. I like the premise of the movie. Unfortunately, that's really all it has going for it. Because so much of the movie feels like filler. The majority of the movie feels like filler. This could have been a short, I think. Concept-wise, the guy who has an unhealthy emotional attachment to his ventriloquist doll that ruins his relationship, that's not a bad idea. I think there is a good movie in there somewhere. This just wasn't it. Still better than Section 31, though. Okay, the new Naked Gun movie. Yeah, now speaking of the... people from Airplane complaining about woke. All the people behind Airplane also did the original Naked Gun, and one of them was talking about how this new Naked Gun is just a cash-in for the money. And it's like, you're the guy who made Scary Movie 3, 4, and 5. Don't just shut up. One of the things I loved about this one is it's this the swipe at like tech bros like Elon Musk was great. I also love there's moments in this movie that feel like they are very much put in there to just openly mock the kind of people who would tell you that you can't make movies like The Naked Gun anymore because of woke. There's another movie on this list that has it's sort of like that. I'll get to it in a bit. But yeah, Pamela Anderson's having a bit of a career renaissance that I'm enjoying seeing so far. And even the jokes I didn't necessarily love, I weren't like particularly offensive or anything. They didn't piss me off. It's just like, okay, you know, that's not as funny as the other jokes. It's fine. Where would I put it? Yeah, I think I'll put that between Mickey 17 and 28 years later. Liam Neeson was the right choice to follow on from that. One thing I kind of wish the movie had done is, because I mean, so that this is Frank Jr., the character who was born at the end of the third movie. And there is no time jump implied here. So Liam Neeson, who is like in his 70s at this point, is playing a character who is canonically in his 30s. And I kind of wish they'd done more with that. Like, not like try to make him look 30 or anything, just like not mention it. That would have been funnier. Like, with the original Naked Gun trilogy, that was based on the TV show Police Squad. In the Police Squad TV series, Nordberg was played by a white guy, and he was played by a double murderer in the movies, and they just don't mention it. And I think that they should have done that here, but you know, it's fine. And of course, they get Weird Al in there because he's in all of these. Down here we have the Odyssey, specifically. It's not based on the book. This is the short film that was the companion to Florence and the Machine's How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful album. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I still don't entirely understand it, but the music is great and the visuals are beautiful, so I have no problem putting this in here over... And I really like Florence and the Machine. I guess I'll just only put it over Predator Badlands. Yeah, I'll put it over Predator Badlands. I'd seen it before when it originally dropped. I watched it like as it debuted streaming. I think they streamed it on, I don't know if it was on like Florence's website, it was like on a website, and I was like, I got in there early, so I was watching it at the first time at the same time as like everybody else who was watching it for the first time. Well, not everybody else. There have been people who watched it later. You know what I mean. The Sign of Zorro, which is not so much a movie as it is several episodes of Disney's Zorro TV series cut together to make a movie, but unlike Section 31, which wasn't that but felt like it, Sign of Zorro, for the most part, I mean, you can kind of see the seams in there between the episodes, but it is shockingly coherent, given that. Not a big fan of a Latin character being played by a white guy, but unfortunately that was all too common at the time, and for what it's worth, he does a respectable job. He doesn't like do an offensive accent, and yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I think I'll put it between Omakase and The World's End. I think that feels right. This is The Army, Irving Berlin, a World War II propaganda film. Well, propaganda, it's propaganda for the good guys, but it is still propaganda. The thing a lot of people don't realize is that the word propaganda is, in fact, value neutral. It is what you're making propaganda about and who you're trying to reach with it that matters. Something can be completely true and still be propaganda because of the presentation. That is a whole conversation I don't think I'm really equipped to get into, but But This is The Army has Ronald Reagan in it, which is bad, but also they don't make him sing, which is good. So I'll put it between The Great Gabbo and Section 31. Also, a lot of drag performances in there. Don't tell Pete Hegseth. They'll try to have every single copy of this movie destroyed, even though it's in the public domain now. Thunderbolts. Holy shit, Thunderbolts was a shock and a half. Oh, wow. I was skeptical going into this one. In fact, I was tempted to just not see it, but a lot of the early buzz had me going, oh, maybe it is good after all, and holy shit, it was good. I think it was, even though I liked First Steps, I think it was actually the best Marvel movie to come out, not just last year, but in the past couple of years. I hope Marvel Studios knows what an absolute, how lucky they are to have Florence Pugh right now. And the movie ends without like a big slugfest the way these movies usually do. And what I find sad, though, is a lot of the people who complain about how a lot of the Marvel movies have the same ending, and to an extent that's true. I think it's overstated, but to an extent it's true. And then one comes along that is actually truly, fairly unique, at least as this franchise goes. And they just don't seem to care, which is really depressing, because I think that means we're going to end up getting more like the ones they complain about and less like this, which makes me sad. But yeah, holy shit, this movie got me to care about the Sentry. I've never been a big fan of the Sentry as a character in the comics. This movie actually made me care about him. That deserves so much credit. And yeah, Thunderbolt's actually genuinely a good movie if you've fallen off the Marvel stuff recently. I would say go ahead and give this a watch. You don't need to have seen the Black Widow movie or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Ant-Man and the Wasp to appreciate this. I mean, I think it helps a little, but it does stand on its own. I think you'll get like some exposition scenes that are fairly quick that get it out of the way. I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus gets enough comeuppance in it, but yeah, it doesn't ruin the movie for me. It's just like, I kind of wish they had, but oh well. The Toxic Avenger remake. Oh, it is so sad that this movie had to sit on a shelf for 2 years trying to find a distributor, because even though it came out in theaters last year, it was actually finished like in 2023. But yeah, Peter Dinklage in the remake of the Trauma classic. I think the movie wisely tries to not try and top the original in terms of gore, and kind of does its... Well, I don't want to say its own thing. It is a remake, but it doesn't... It accepts that, it can't top the original in terms of gore, and so doesn't try. Kevin Bacon is definitely playing Bryan Johnson. That is, not literally, but, Bryan Johnson is the creepy billionaire. I know I need to be very specific. He's the one who injects his own son's blood into him to try and make himself to try and, extend his life. And he seems to be convinced that he still looks like a much younger man than he is, when in fact he looks older than he is. Look him up. It's just, he's so fucking weird. And Elijah Wood's in it, and he's fine. I love that there's a post-credit scene that like starts out like sort of an MCU sequel bait thing, but then just fucking cuts it off mid-sentence and goes to Toxie, breaking the fourth wall to explain his technique for making grilled cheese sandwiches. I don't think I'm doing it justice, but it's funny. And this is another movie. This is the other movie, apart from the new Naked Gun movie, that has a scene in there that is definitely meant to poke explicitly at the kinds of assholes who will tell you that they can't make movies like these anymore because woke. I'll be vague here because, spoilers, but there's a scene where some shitty incel types take over a restaurant because they changed their logo for the character in their logo from a man to a woman, and Toxie fucks him up, and that is all I will say about it. It is funny, and it is pretty... I think it is a pretty clear mission statement on the part of the makers of the film. It's just like, telling the kind of telling right-wing chuds, it's like, we do not want you in our audience. Fuck off. This was one of my favorites. I think this was second only to Superman in terms of my favorites for last year. So yeah, I don't... it's got a couple of problematic elements, but then again, it's based on a trauma film, so that's kind of they like to push the envelope, and occasionally they push the envelope too far. But as Diamanda Hagen, if you're new here, Diamanda Hagen is a YouTuber I've been a fan of for years. As she says, it's like offensive comedy by itself is not bad. The problem is, don't do offensive comedy if you're going to get upset when people get offended. And that's the problem with a lot of like these kind of right-wing chuds who do offensive comedy. They get pissed when people are offended. It's like, well, duh. You're mad that people are responding the way you were hoping they would respond? No wonder you suck at it. And that's the worst part, actually. When right-wingers try to do offensive comedy, it's not funny. You can do offensive comedy and be funny. Hey, I just put one there right behind fucking Superman. I don't know why I pointed at the screen. You can't see me. But yeah, you can do it, but they can't because the problem is that conservative comedians don't tell jokes. Yeah, this is a quote I'm stealing from Thought Slime here. Conservative comedians don't tell jokes. They tell what they believe in the cadence of a joke. Anyway, Violent Night. This is another one I watch every Christmas now. This is part of my tradition. Christmas Eve for the past several years, I watch Violent Night and Anna and the Apocalypse. And this is, this isn't Christmas as a Die Hard movie. This is Die Hard as a Christmas movie. This is the movie that is at the top of my list for movies I wish I could have sat in on the pitch meeting for. Yeah, Santa fucks up mercenaries that kidnap a family on Christmas Eve. Well, hold a whole family hostage on Christmas Eve. It's fun. Not really more to say than that, but it's nice how a lot of these movies that have a Santa who kills, they make him like the bad guy, and this one doesn't, and that kind of makes it special in that regard. Although I hear that the remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night has the killer Santa killing Nazis. Maybe I should watch that. But yeah, Violent Night is just loads of fun. It's one of my new Christmas favorites. And okay, I'll go ahead and address the David Harbour in the room here. He really fucked himself by hiring that PR firm to deal with his divorce, because I looked at what his ex is accusing him of, and look, it's not great. Cheating and being neglectful is really sucky, and don't do that. Don't cheat on your partner. Don't neglect your partner. Thing is, by hiring the PR firm that he did, the same people who represented Justin Baldoni and Johnny Depp, people who don't look up what the allegations against him are going to think that they are worse than they actually are. They're going to think he is a huge monster when really he's just kind of douchey, and I don't like it. I imagine that we would probably not get along if we were to meet in person. I will admit that, but nothing he's accused of is on the level of I can never watch anything you're in ever again. At least not yet. Maybe more stuff will come out. I hope it doesn't, because I would very much like to continue having Violent Night as a Christmas tradition for me. But yeah, as it stands right now, Jesus Christ, David, you should not have hired that PR firm. You just made things worse for yourself. Okay, enough about that. Let's get down to the last two. The documentary about the band Wham, that was fine. What was a nice touch with that is, I'm going to put it over the side of Zora. It had no narrator. It just used archival footage and interviews. I think some of the interviews with other guy from Wham, the guy from Wham who's not George Michael. I am so sorry that I keep forgetting his name. I forget it every fucking time. But yeah, I think some of the stuff with him is new and was filmed for this documentary. But yeah, it's an interesting documentary about a band that's actually kind of underrated. Some of their songs had a bit more social commentary than one might think. It kind of gets lost in the beats and the catchiness, but it's there. And George Michael was just such a cool dude. We did not appreciate him enough when he was alive. And finally, the same people who made Wham also made a documentary about Devo. I haven't seen that yet, but it's in the queue. Wicked for Good. Ugh. Okay, this was always going to be a tough ask, because the second half of the musical is the weakest part. I think it gets kind of a bad rap. I think, a lot of people act like there aren't any good songs in the second half, that it's all downhill after Defying Gravity. I disagree with that. I actually like As Long As You're Mine and No Good Deed. And For Good is one that I think a lot of the people who say there are no good songs in the second half just forget about For Good, which is the song that the sequel took its subtitle from. I mean, that one got some radio play too, not on the level of Defying Gravity, but yeah, it was fine. There were they added a couple of new songs. I didn't particularly love them, but I wasn't like entirely put off by them. Weird choice to turn Wonderful from just the Wizard into a duet with the Wizard and Glinda. I don't know what that was. I don't think it really added anything. But, it was wicked. I've seen the stage show. I love the stage show. The movie, the second half of the movie mostly captures it. It does kind of fill in one little slight plot hole from the musical that wasn't really the musical's fault. It was just, there's only so much you can do on a stage show, even with a budget. But it adds some things. It clears up some stuff. Still, I mean, part one is definitely the superior version, and I can see why this one didn't get quite as much praise as the first part. I think, yeah, I don't know if it was a mistake to split it into two parts, because I think a lot of the stuff that was added in part one actually did improve upon things a little, at least a little. I don't know. Yeah, part two definitely not as good as part one. I do think it's a little overhated, to be honest, but yeah, I do agree that it didn't like deserve all. A lot of people there were some fans who were upset that it didn't get any award nominations the way part one did, and I'm like, I can kind of see why. Part one is definitely better. But part two is not bad. There were some weird visual choices, I think, like in As Long As You're Mine. The opening line is along is like, hold me too kiss me too fiercely, hold me too tight is being sung while they're not kissing and one character is walking away. that was odd. But yeah. Where would I put Wicked for Good? I'm going to put it at the bottom of the A tier. Part one is definitely better. I have not yet had the opportunity to watch both back to back. I might change my mind if I get to do that. All right, so yep, there it is. Every movie I watched in 2025, I have rambled on for way too long. I am sorry if a lot of what I said made no goddamn sense whatsoever. There will be a link in the show notes to this list. You can do your own. I imagine nobody who watches this has seen all of these the way I have. But, you always have the option to click on this little gear thing here and add in a haven't seen to the thing. And you can edit any of these to say what you want to. I mean, I imagine if you've seen more than one tier ranking video, you probably already know that. Okay, so yeah, Hot Fuzz up in the S tier, but with a bit of an asterisk because of how many of the actors are willing to work with J.K. Rowling. Violent Night, I'm fine with actually putting that at the top of the A tier just because it's so much fun. Even though David Harbour probably is cheating on your wife sucks, dude. It's not the worst thing in the world, and yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think maybe some people care a little too much about infidelity. But, yeah, just try not to do that again. Okay? Yeah, I'm sure David Harbour is seeing this and is totally taking my advice. Yeah, there we go. The movies I watched in 2025. All of them. Yeah, sorry it's been so long since I've done one of these. I'll try to get some more done this year. I have a couple of ideas for other ones, like all the season opener movies for Shameless Cash Grab. Because, I think I mentioned back when I did season 12 that Has Anybody Seen My Gal is probably one of the best season openers, if not the best season opener movie I've done on the show so far. I might do some discography ones at some point. I think the only discography one I've done so far is Weird Al. But, yeah, alright, yeah, 2025, Shameless Cash Grab Season 13 is going. The set for season 14 has been purchased. Not going to say what it is yet. You'll find out at the end of season 13. The Gnome Mobile episode for season 13 should be coming along shortly. Okay, bye. Have fun, stay safe.